Welcome to Art and Words. This is the annual exhibition that I do in April to celebrate National Poetry Month. And the exhibition is a collaboration between artists and poets. How it works is, I think I'm muted. So sorry, folks. Okay. So the exhibition is a collaboration of art between artists and poets. I invite artists to participate by submitting existing artwork that will go to the poets. Poets are also asked to submit existing poetry that will go to the artists. The artists and poets select a piece that they are connected with, and then they create a new piece of art with that poem or a new piece of poetry inspired by that piece of art. So we have a number of poets here that are going to read their poetry. And then we also have a number of artists who are going to talk about their poetry. So the first thing that I'm doing, we're getting a feedback. Is someone unmuted? I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So the first piece that I'm going to read is hold on, folks. Okay. I'm sorry, we are going to get this going in just a second. Okay, so the first piece. So sorry, folks. I'm just trying to get this to work right. Okay, great. All right. So the first piece that I'm going to present is a poem by Gwyneth Green. It's called Paint a Poem. And there were two pieces of artwork that were inspired by Paint a Poem. Paint a poem. Paint a poem. Use colors that fuse thoughts, creating shapes, forming a breathless affirmation. Be bold with your brush. Daub with gold and green, crafting a hidden meaning that tugs at one's heart. Be fearless. Blot, splotch, smear, splatter your creativity on the canvas. Let your imagination soar with fine lines. Surprise the art lovers. Surprise yourself. Don't let your mind be confused. Let the muse communicate the vibrant missive. Please paint me a poem. Okay, that's the first piece. I am also going to read now one of my poems, an existing poem called Vanity. And Jetta Bedea did a really, really wonderful piece for Vanity. It's called La Mia Gianconda, the Vain One. Vanity. They found you sprawled across the bathroom floor, your wrinkled face brushing smooth tile. You didn't have time to put on your wig. It was on your nightstand, lovingly placed atop the styrofoam stand-in, awaiting tease and spray. Did you forget about your appointment that morning? If you had remembered, would you have kept your wig on, wrapped it in toilet paper, and slept on your back with your hands folded over your bosom so your elbows would keep you from rolling over onto your stomach? If you had known, would you have made yourself pretty to be made prettier the way you did before visiting the beauty parlor? Applied mascara to your brittle lashes so that each time your gay hairdresser flirted, they would appear strong and supple when you batted them. Outlined your lips above their sagging crowns and colored between the lines with the red of desire. If you had known about your appointment today, would you have put your life in order like the nail polish organized by shade? Spent your last hours with your children and their children, offering one last hug and I love you? Or would you have mixed yourself a Tom Collins and spent that time looking into the mirror, fussing over yourself and getting ready? Okay, the next piece was actually a poem that I had written in response to another piece of work. It was this piece of work a number of years ago. It's a piece by Erica Resnick. It was an art and word show at a different gallery that I had worked at. I had connected with the piece and decided to write a poem for it. I decided to put the poem as a selection for other poets to choose from, and a really wonderful poet had chosen my piece, Yvonne Roas Cowan. It's called Lost in the Colors of My Soul, her piece. So this is the poem called Come. Come. I've traveled through the shades of red, the pink of, traveled through the shades of red, the pink of birth and the blush of adolescence, the candy of passion, the rose of love, and the scarlet stench of loss. I've swayed with the blues all my life, the electro coolness of cobalt, the back and forth mania of indigo calming itself down to an azure, and finally finding peace in the tranquility of periwinkle. The yellows have always energized me. They feed me the sun and keep me smiling. I have gone one-on-one with the butterscotch, but can sometimes be a whole grain mustard. I am part sour lemon, part sappy honey, but all golden. The greens have always been a challenge. I've protested the army and hunters, chopped the basils and mints. My toes have been tickled by moss and my senses titillated by chartreuse. The greens have been friend and foe. But these days, the colors are beginning to blend and create new hues. My footprints have oxidized into a mixture of vibrancy and gray. Darker patches streaking and stroking, beckoning me to come. But they took that away from me. I can't anymore. Okay. And then I have one more. Again, this one was a poem that I had written inspired by a piece of artwork previously called Blinded by the Light. This is the original piece. It's a collage by Luis Alves, and two artists had chosen to create new pieces for the work. Josefa Gutelius and Ellen McKay. So this is Blinded by the Light. Blinded by the light. Hold my hand and we will make it through this world of vivid colors, shadowed eyes, and caterpillar lashes. The world that they want us to join of questioning morals, renegade artists, and wastely ways. Stick with me as we start our journey, but be aware, for they are out to hook you with their promises of democracy, freedom, and bikinis. Keep your feet grounded and face covered, and do not expose yourself, for we will finish this passage that our forefathers foretold, and we will remain golden. Okay. All right, and let's see, who do we have next? Theresa. Hold on one sec. So sorry. All right. So next we have Theresa Landy Daniel, who is going to read. Theresa created a piece, and she also had written a piece for it. So Theresa is going to read hers.
The piece is called No Time for Talking. My poem is called Discourse Without Words. I time my breathing to inhale your warm exhale. It smells earthy, soft and reliable, and warm, so warm. You breathe out and I breathe in. I sigh and sometimes smile. This is the most affectionate you ever are, breathing evenly and fragrantly while you sleep, and not minding that I am there because you are unaware. This letting out and taking in by turns is our quiet time conversation, measured and calm. First you, then me. You do not know my face is so close, and I will never tell you. We are still in love in the middle of the night because I will it so. And because nothing short of death do us part will interfere in this exchange of shared breath. The other poem is called No Time for Talking by Gwyneth Green. You called. I didn't pick up. You left a voice message. Hey, sweetie, it seems like forever. I know we talked yesterday, but so much more to say. Give me a call when you have a few minutes. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. You send a text. Just called. I didn't respond. Next was an email. Need to talk. Please call as soon as you can. That went to spam. You sent a message via Facebook. You're on Facebook right now. I see the green dot by your name. Been leaving messages all over the place. What's up? You okay? Please answer. I have lots to say. I turned off the computer, the iPad and phone, hoping the message would get through.
Robert is
Next
on
we
mute.
have Lucinda. And Lucinda is going to be reading a piece by a poem, a piece that was inspired by a piece of work by Ed Berkes. So go for it, Lucinda.
In memory of a tree. Having just completed a long, grueling cattle drive, the dirt-encrusted cowboys had been boisterously swigging whiskey shots, one after another. There was an exception to this bar-hugging cluster, their point man Juan. Short and wiry, thin as a stick, he was by far the more introverted one, who had spent the last months at the front of the cattle drive, regulating the direction and speed of the herd. Juan spent his workdays alone, riding forward to their destination, with no other companionship than that of his horse, at least till mealtimes. A human compass with an unerring sense of direction that never failed the others. He was the arrowhead that led the barreling mass of flesh onward. Instead of joining the others, Juan sat at the left of the disheveled piano man. Leaning sideways, he gulped a cool sarsaparilla. It clutched in his chapped, cracked fingers. Despite being nearly on top of the battered instrument, he still could not discern the notes over the din of his rowdy companions. Frustrated and bone weary, there was no reason to stay in the saloon even one more moment. Taking a last swallow, He tucked his worn hat tighter against the autumnal breeze and walked out into the dense darkness. The large mare kicked up some dust as they rode from the flay just outside of Fort Griffin, headed towards the Guadalupe mountain range. Juan was determined to return there, a location he had found several years past. In his memory, it was a peaceful oasis, a private site. His intention was to fall into a satisfied slumber as a reward of the 5 months of hard labor. He planned to hunker down there for a few days and rest up before heading back to the pleasures of San Francisco. The thought of unwinding in solitude had been his only goal. Finding a secluded spot under a bluff, Juan fell asleep underneath a sturdy chinkapin oak that towered overhead some 50 feet tall. His horse had been surprisingly uneasy, so he gave in to her whim and sheltered the animal a ways apart, closer to the outcrop of boulders. He had determined that the tree would offer protection from the elements. The sky held so many clouds it blocked out even the dim light of the waxing moon. The gray clusters, crowded as they were, moved rapidly from the south. Surely a storm was brewing. In Juan's fatigue, he had fallen asleep, oblivious to the soft, repeated drips that descended slowly but surely upon his worn Navajo blanket. The man jostled on dampened ground in an unconscious stupor. In his uneasy dream that night, he had been fighting against a merciless flood as the sensation of wetness wormed its way upward. As the dawn broke through the night's curtain, Juan's eyes opened. Still relaxed, snuggled in his bedroll, his eyes drifted through the overhanging branches until they rested on a sight that seared into him forever after. Within the embrace of the mighty oak was held the remains of a man, swinging mutely from a sturdy noose. Swaying in the morning breeze, it was as if the air itself sought to comfort the dead. Throughout that night, the man's swollen body had been surrendering drops of human essence through the tears and rips of his mutilated humanity. Juan did not bother with his usual morning ritual of a cup of coffee. He disregarded his intention to rest a spell, instead jumped on his horse and rode hard through a dreadful storm until he was out of Texas, leaving the blood-stained Navajo blanket and his cattle-driving life behind. It was time to leave the past as far away as his nightmares would ever allow.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, the next reader that we have is Natalie Burka. Natalie wrote 2 poems for 2 of the pieces of art. So Natalie's going to go ahead and read those now.
Hi, everybody. And this was new for me. I've never written poems about a piece of artwork. So it was a really interesting challenge and a lot of fun to look at the artwork in a different way. The first poem I'm going to read, it was inspired by a piece called Katrina Selfie by Yvonne, and I hope I say her name right, sorry, Rojas Cowan. I loved the self-confidence in this piece. I loved it just seemed to have a lot of power. This person's very self-possessed. So this is behind the camera. When we were hearts, our hearts were flowers. Dark charged ribs encased such power. Priestess, cool assessing gaze. Deity lost, no offerings claimed. Smugly crowns her head raised. Hair spun wild, coils inflamed. Bird whisper shoulder and color glazed. Grows a garden and hides her pain. Tattooed skin cloak, pattern blazed. Camouflage magic and pretends she's tamed. That was the first one. And then the second piece is inspired by Anne Morris's piece, Proof. And I think Robert's going to put that up in a second. And I love this too, because it was very seductive to me. There was something very innocent at the same time being very sexual. And if you look carefully, there's a tower in the corner down in the right. And I started thinking about Rapunzel and found out there are Rapunzel myths all over the world. So that's what this poem kind of refers to. The hidden sex. Victims? Hidden children, girls, innocents, tower bound in their youth, but in their adolescence, secretly practicing sun and moon goddess worship. Hands flung up in close proximity, creating spiderweb constellations, mixing magic and menstruation, sensuously enthralled with their own bodies, growing the parts of them they could signal with. Hair equals lust, equals sin, equals freedom. Princess or peasant, the story starts the same. She was sensational, slipping behind gauzy panels at the narrowest window. Rapunzel, vocalizations of honey and musk, led to blinded eyes and dresses that need to be loosened. Soleil, freed by the zodiac, left Scorpio, crimson coloring the scene with lustful eyes, sledge swinging. Rudaba lowered dark-haired chains, proposing confident chaperone conversations, awakened love and defiance. Petronella, proficient with poppies, gold ladder beckoning, repeatedly romancing the besotted prince. Someone is craving. Someone commits a crime. Someone is sacrificed. The innocent are punished. Someone is found. Someone escapes. Someone is left. And there is a joining. Thank you. See you again in a little bit.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, I just wanted to mention that all of the work is available to view and purchase through the Emerge Gallery website. That's Emerge, E-M-E-R-G-E, Gallery, G-A-L-L-E-R-Y, ny.com. And the work is also available on artsy.net. Just look up Emerge Gallery NY, and you can see, you can purchase work from there, see all of the poems and the artwork up close, in addition to works from previous shows and online exclusives. All right, we just saw a proof by Ann Morris, so I'm going to bring Ann over. Ann's going to talk a little bit about that piece and another piece that she wrote for Loel Barr's piece of poetry called Ticket Updated. So here's Ann Morris.
Oh. Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Good. So with proof, thank you, Natalie. That was beautiful. I forgot about the tower in the bottom right-hand corner, and there definitely is one. I'm amazed that you got such detail out of, such a detailed poem from the images that I collaged. For this one, I started with a totally blank page and a blank mind, and played a lot with pattern and shape. And yeah, there are some sexy pictures in there, but it wasn't really what I was thinking about when I made it. I was really concentrating on the shapes and the patterns and color. So thank you for your poem. It was beautiful. The next piece that I did was Ticket Updated, which, Robert, I don't know if you want to show that one. And it's hard to see, but this poem, which Loel may explain, had really crazy random images in it, because the lines pretty much were random lines that she found in spam emails. And with this, I tried using some of Loel's images, but I also reversed all the lines of her poems. So I pasted them into the collage, and my collage actually starts out as rerouting was astral, which is the last line of her poem. I just reversed the whole thing. And for me, it seemed to work either way. So that's it.
Thank you, Wen. Now we are going to bring over Loel Barr, who created the poem for Ticket Updated that Anne created, and then also Will Nixon did one as well. Go for it, Loel.
Yeah, I'd just like to say a little bit about the poem.
Yeah, please.
My daughter and I, a few years ago, started noticing that in spam emails that were, advertising penis enlargement mostly, there was always a block of text at the bottom that I think they put in to escape the filters. And we started reading these, and they just started really amusing us. And we would read them like poetry, so we collected them. And then we edited them slightly just by removing extra words and created poems out of them. So that's how this one came about. Ticket updated was the heading on the email. Shriven universe of feeble rhapsody as countrymen stomp from themselves. Flax and tangerines, combination in grape. Lurk, sip, a thief caper? By abdomen, its aeronautic waistline was indissoluble. Whereon the arching brewer we out-hooched me. A crappy, a cramp. Any deacons are Anique. Rerouting was astral.
All right, Loel is also going to share now. Loel's going to be reading a poem written by Gwyneth Green for a piece that she did called Flea, which I think was a flea.
Got this printed out on random pieces of paper, so to follow it. Okay, you got it there. Mabel, 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 I need you to scout out the other tables. What are they vending in the, what are they vending? Is their stuff as good as ours? Do they have a complete set of Corningware? Do the dishes have chips? What prices are on the tags and slips? Mabel, you need to be incognito. Put on the red wig, big hat, and sunglasses. Lower your voice when you ask about the cut glass. Don't be surprised if they question your knowledge. Sound confused. That shouldn't be hard for you. Mabel, my dear, return as a stranger. And please be alert when someone asks me about a porcelain figurine. Try to haggle a bit so they compete. And don't fight too hard. We want them to win. Going home, treasure in hand with a snicker and grin. Whoops, where'd she go? Sorry. Mabel, my sweetheart Mabel, this is your chance to show what you've got. Gather the intel so we can leave with cash in our tin box.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you, Loel. Loel did a number of pieces for the show. She's actually been a part of the show for a number of years now. The next piece, it was actually a piece of art of Loel's called Twin Peaks, and Anna Silva had chosen the poem to do a piece to. And Anna has a new book that's coming out, so I encourage you, I ordered my copy, looking forward to it, and I encourage everybody to search it out. Maybe Anna, you could tell us a little bit about where people can find it when it's coming out.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Well, I was really struck by Loel's, both of these pieces, actually. I had a hard time choosing between Flea and Twin Peaks, and they were both so different. But this one seemed like it was calling to me a little more for a poem. So the poem that I wrote is called Meet Me in the Cave of Your Heart. The gentle green will do us good. The watery view will calm us. It's hard to tell if that light-lit river is circling in or flowing out. My heart will be there, listening to yours in the dark. Purple, lingering on the edges of the visible light, will intrigue us. Protected from the reaches of tyrants who have no caverns of their own in which to rest. We will hear your lungs drawing in good, clean air. My lungs will hold the volume tight, before we let out quiet song into the shape of a swirl. Thank you, Loel, for that inspiration. I really enjoyed looking at your poem as I wrote. And I'll put in the chat the name of my upcoming chapbook. Thank you, Robert.
And then Anna's going to read one more piece by Adogary, and it was a poem inspired that inspired 6 little small canvases by Linda Linton for this poem. So Anna, go for it.
You by Adogary. Meadows lined with grass green flowers paint a rare scene, shackles sawn asunder, lightning with her thunder. Sunset sky, purple hue, serene ocean dressed blue. I thought this was beauty, then I saw you.
Going to read a poem right now that 2 artists had created work for. One is Linda Linton and the other is Elaine Ralston. And then a piece that Ellen wrote for a piece of art by Jack Brainlein. Go for it, Ellen.
This is Nemosini. Soft loam, leaf dust. Step by step, your feet sink into the forest ground. Now that you've returned to the land where you were born, familiar scents, pine needles, log mold, moss earth. The roof over your head is a native woods, a canopy of stars, spilling late summer light. A single cirrus cloud trails in the ink blue sky, white bird on a distant lake, an afterthought, a smudge, a sidelong glance on waters heavy and silent, shining dark as memory. I, Mnedmosni, mother of the muses, would crown you with the light of all the faces of those you love.
Nice.
And this came to me sort of all of a piece. I started with the imagery in the painting and let the horse have its head. And it took me somewhere unexpected. Sky Within Earth, from the painting Within Earth, Sky by Jack Brainlein. I am inside the earth. Am I buried? Am I covered by sackcloth dirt, a mud shroud of my own making? I look up, openings give onto sky, clear, blue, pale as a sigh of relief to see the outer world now made of ether of my own making. I could rise up from my grave and be counted among those who hear the call to be churned into peaks by strong hands, hands that pound me, thwack me down on the table, roll me out flat, roll me up into coils, fold me, knead me, pound me again until I am solid, nary an air bubble left. So I won't explode. It's not over yet. Large hands of my own making. Now what? I'm a mound of clay spinning on the wheel, deft fingers pull me up little by little, slippery, slick, coaxing my form, rounding my belly, narrowing my neck, broadening my mouth. A gasp of surprise. Now I have curved walls, and inside I slide into the kiln, stand up in the heat as the fires rage, fires of my own making. It's not over yet. I glow red in the blast, on, and I am white hot, then pink. Now I am cooling down. I can hold water. I can hold grain. Flowers? What do you mean there's more? I thought I was done. A sigh of pleasure as the glazes flow cool over my body. I am splashed, splattered, painted. At 800 Celsius, flames dress me in glass garments. I emerge, radiant. My drips hold depths like water running down my sides, waters of my own making. Called, I came to wear green and cream and yellow, Sankai colors with small spaces left bare. Am I ready to accompany the living in their daily ceremonies, honor the dead, buried with them, be a gift, bequeathed, lost, remembered, unearthed, cherished? Have I become a real vessel? The water is cold, the peonies fragrant.
All right, great. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jack Brownlin. Where are you, Jack? Here you are. Okay, Jack created a couple of pieces. He created a new poem for a work by Ellen McKay called New Map. He also submitted a poem called Cleo's Song that was selected by two artists, one artist, Yvette Lewis. And then Jack also created a poem for one of my photographs called Curio Cabinet. So Jack will go ahead and read those three pieces.
Okay. Yeah, first, New Map was inspired to me by, of course, Ellen's painting. And I tried several different ways to approach this. And I just felt at the end, they were just too contrived. I wasn't getting it right. It was too much from the outside. And I was convinced by the beginning of this past week that I'd sort of exhausted all my creative juices, that I couldn't write another word. I couldn't paint anything, and I'd had it. And then Wednesday, I got the very sad news that my therapist and close friend, Peggy Wright, had died on Monday. And it really devastated me. And that day I just walked outside and just started writing things down. And as it turned out, they were like haiku. And although haiku usually expresses a complete idea in one poem, it almost flowed like a story and related to Ellen's painting. So this is what I ended up with. New Map, haiku for Peggy Wright. My pathway tangled. Then she gave me a new map. Look, the page is blank. My map gone, destroyed. Who guides my moon, stars or heart? Blue angel flying. Monday, dogs baying. Stillness hangs over rooftops. There, eagle in flight. Gray clouds move slowly. Wrapped in shrouds, a new burden. What a gorgeous day. Red maple outside, today, bright, sunny, flaming. I am a willow. Shadows on my wall. She told me about the cave. What's that behind me? If he is not here, how can I kill the Buddha? Mist on the mountain. Jesus said, look in. What is hidden, now revealed. Children are laughing. Daffodils in bloom, no birds, a heavy silence, snow on the pathway. She gave me a gift. What do I have left to me? Love, laughter, plum wine.
Jack, this one is for Cleo's Song.
Right, I didn't know I was going to read that.
Oh, okay. And then the next one is for Curio Cabinet.
Yeah, Rob, as soon as I saw this, it immediately resonated with me because it reminded me of this incident that had occurred to me actually the day before I graduated from university. And it has been such an image that always stayed with me. So I saw this photograph that just brought this out. So this is Curio Cabinet. It was a hot day in the summer of '68. We were driving the back roads of South Jersey. The wind is down and the hot, humid air pouring all around us. This old house came into view. The sign out front said, antiques, collectibles, curios of all kinds. And Nikki goes, oh, Joey, stop, it'll be such fun. So Joe pulls the car over. We all got out of the car. But when we went inside, things got strange. Because the windows rolled down, there was no AC. It was stifling hot in there. And these tables set up with china plates, cups, and figurines and all this junk that people must have thrown away years ago. I remember these clocks were all ticking out of sync, like they'd been set at different times. And there were these really strange dolls and mannequins sitting and standing and staring at us with frozen expressions and unblinking eyes. And then this old man came out, shuffling with broken down slippers and a dirty, strappy t-shirt. And he says, good to see you. Hope you'll stay. He goes over to this old wind-up Victrola, put on the 78, and started singing along and looking at us and laughing. The old man kept changing records in the room, seemed to get hotter and hotter. We're milling around this place, the clocks and the china and the mannequins and the heat. And I guess I must have freaked out or something, because the next thing I remember was us running out of
No,
the
it's the poetry reading, the emerged poetry reading.
Oh.
So.
Loel, could mute yourself.
Okay.
right. So hello.
Okay.
The next thing I remember is us running out of there, jumping to the car with lots of nervous laughter. As we were pulling out, Nikki goes, oh God, Joey, look. And up there in the attic window, staring at us, was a human form, a mannequin of a young girl, one hand raised up against the pane of glass, and her eyes staring blindly at the road ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you.
Jean, I don't think Jean is here. Jean Campbell? No? Okay. Jean had written a poem for Curio Cabinet as well, which I'll bring it back up here, and I will go ahead and I will read Jean's piece that she wrote for it. Curio Cabinet. Light seeping through the dust, particles floating dreamily, the prayers of our forebearers gathered in one place. Pale porcelain dolls unblinking, witness to a century of change, are nestled among examples of American ingenuity gone silent. Crockery that once clattered on a busy table, tongs to lift the logs glowing to ash as dinner cooked on the hearth. And the finest glassware, proof of prosperity and education, left abandoned in the company of dust. I love that. It's, you know, as it's really interesting. I'm sure a lot of the artists agree. It's really interesting to see when someone takes a piece of your art and sort of makes it their own, especially if you're talking about art and words. So I'm really, really pleased with this. All of the pieces that were written to my artwork, and then also artwork that's created to my poems. Every year, I'm just so floored by how creative people can be, and so proud and honored that people, are responding to my work. So thank you. Our next reader is Marjorie Maggie. Marjorie has been in the show before as well. I think this is maybe her third or fourth time.
I think my second.
Okay.
I hope not anymore.
Me too.
Yeah.
So Marjorie created a piece for a piece of a poem, and a poet also created a poem for one of Marjorie's works. So Marjorie, let's bring you on and read.
You hear me? Yeah. Okay.
The first one is by Gwyneth Green.
Okay. All right. Let me just say a bit about this. This piece, which I had created a couple of years ago. The inspiration was actually a mannequin in the Bergdorf Goodman Christmas windows. And I was just very intrigued with this woman. And I thought of creating something that would just combine all kinds of absurd elements in it, very dreamlike. And this is what I came up with. I had painted a blue-footed booby before and a giraffe, and you know, the combination of inside and outside all together. So this is the poem that Gwyneth wrote for it. I dreamt it. Was it so long ago that we four would party on the floor? We swore to forever friends. We were 10. One lanky, one flighty, one rather small, and I in the middle of you all. Never imagining age changes everything. Some girls become bitches, others turn into witches. Best are the princesses who might not always be right, but never wrong. The artist, of course, painting them as sweet innocents. Blinded and bounded by friendship, unable to recollect at all those traits in we four. Never imagining time changes everything. Marriages, divorces, kids or not, spits and spats, jealousies and rages, texting and chats, physiques changing, minds forget, unwillingness to accept. Because believing this a dream means I dreamt they were my friends.
Nice.
Thank you.
And then Marjorie also created a new piece inspired by a poem by Will Nixon, which I'm going to read in a moment. But Marjorie, do you want to say a little something about this piece?
Yeah, I love this poem. And I think what I really responded to was the boys' sense of absolute freedom and delight to get away from the conventional life I represented below of the, you know, his father coming back from work and the dog. And I just wanted to express the joy absolute joy that he's feeling sitting up there on the roof and away from it all in his pirate costume, which was not exactly in the poem, but which I added, and the bird and the little roof there. So he's having a great time. And I hope I expressed that.
Great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I will read Will's poem. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Okay. So there were two pieces created for Will's poem. One of them was by Marjorie, as we just saw, and the other is by Loel Barr, called Fly Away. The poem is called When I Had It Made. I had loose teeth that became nickels under my pillow, a wooden trunk filled with plastic pirate gear, and a black eye patch my mother wouldn't let me wear to second grade. I trapped crickets in jelly jars and fed them grass blades until they died, and joined my collection of dried starfish, rocket stamps, and Canadian pennies. I practiced lassoing with the laundry line and almost caught the squirrel my mother hated for running in the roof gutters whenever she tried to nap. One day I crawled out from my window and climbed the sandpapery roof shingles to the crest of the house, where I sat practicing for an unsaddled horse and saw things I'd never seen before. The daisy window from the neighbor's attic filled with lamps, the green hills hunched like ants along the horizon, where I bet some Indians still lived. When the paper boy came, he didn't see me spying and didn't know a black lab was racing around the corner after his pants. When Dad walked home whistling and swinging his briefcase, he didn't see me almost as high as the crows. He carried his gin and tonic onto the patio, opened the newspaper to the Little League scores, and told my mother in the kitchen the next library lecture was about robins. When I grew up, I decided I would be an angel who watched people like this all day. I saw the first star at the end of the blue sky and didn't come down until the sun set put the smallest clouds to sleep. Such a really beautiful poem. Thank you, Will. Okay, the next piece, our next reader is going to be Lesley Bodzy. Lesley has created a new piece for a poem by Will Nixon, who Lesley will read that piece. And then there were 2 pieces created for 2 of Lesley's pieces, one by Michelle Cicco and the other by Gwyneth Green, I believe. So welcome, Lesley.
Okay, hi, Robert.
Okay. Hi, Lesley.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm unmuted. So I'm going to start with Mad Chemist by Will Nixon. Okay, so this is a piece, I did this artwork in response to Will's wonderful poem. And here's the poem. In the basement, I fought World War I in dirt trenches, spread by trowel on the pool table. My metal soldiers survived firecrackers, catapulted by spoons, dive bomb hand attacks by my little brother, earthquakes from our knees drumming under the table. My father stopped the war when Rex the cat began pooping in the dirt. Your mother doesn't want you playing in bacteria. So I played mad chemist. I'd invent acid for burning open safes, freezing fluids for ants, worms, and girls' toes. From brown bottles raked in my chemistry set, I mixed bad odors and slow fizzles, but nothing burned from matches dropped down blackened tubes. After my brother ratted, my father locked the chemistry set in his closet. Your mother wants you to become a doctor, not a bomb maker. Think about eating breakfast without your fingers. I picked his closet with a paperclip and took my chemistry set to the swamp with a bottle of Mountain Dew to mix my brother a surprise. This formula would turn his hair blue, soften his teeth like rubber. I drank my half of the Mountain Dew, then his half, and held the bottle under slimy water, making it gurgle until a murky head rose, a snapping turtle hooked like a claw. My brother found the chemistry set in the swamp snow, rusty as an old can with spilled bottles of smelly ice. My father punished me with no television for polluting a wetland. He didn't know the secret of the snapping turtle, sipping chemicals, glowing green, breathing fire.
Nice. Lesley, can you tell us about this piece a little bit?
Well, let's see, it's a piece on aluminum. I mounted it on an aluminum panel, and it's based on a mold that I made of, I thought it looked sort of like, cookie, something that had been dumped into the water and then aged, like in Will's poem. There's also some mixed media in there. So that's what I think it's 12 by 12. So it looks very industrial, kind of has the feeling of rust.
Yes. Lovely. Thank you. All right, and the next poem is based on a piece called Infinity.
Okay, so this poem, I'll read. I think it's called Infinitude.
Yes, the poem is called Infinitude. Yes.
So unwrap, unplug, detach, disconnect, uncover, refocus, discover, find, free your mind, wander limitlessly, open to boundless possibilities, establishing an unrestricted place where inspiration is fed by the unexpected, effortless flow when letting go, becoming one with the muse, creativeness streams, colors blend, missives materialize in an infinite union.
Nice. And then the last piece is based on your piece called C, and it's by Michelle Cicco.
My footsteps sink in as I take them towards the soft waves. The The vast seafoam shaded ocean lifts my heart's connection. Body slowly folds into the sand, rolling into my being. The waves penetrate every sense. Smelling the salt increases my hunger. All awakens the core of my soul as I give myself freely to the sea.
Nice, beautiful. Thank you, Lesley.
You're welcome.
Okay, great, thank you. Our next reader will be Anique Taylor. Anique had two pieces, two works that were created for two pieces of work that were inspired to two new pieces of artwork. So I'm going to bring Anique on. Anique, can you say something? So I know you're.
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
All right, I'm going to bring the visuals on. And there you go. The first one was a piece by Loel Barr called Lemons, inspired by one of Anique's poems. So Anique is going to read that now.
Thank you, Loel, for the beautiful picture. Thoughts on lemons as mother reads a New Yorker, and the cancer is still only a single cell in her lung. Lemon sliced thin beside the penguin ice bucket, Cinzano vermouth, Gordon's dried gin. Slice me a lemon, dear? Mother's hand raised as I hold the lemon perfect in the palm of mine, rolling. The evergreen orange citron mix, elliptic protruding nipple apex stacked in yellow grocery bins, trucked in from Arizona, rose soaking heat on waxy leaves, thorns spreading. Faintly pitted, slightly ribbed, fine-grained, tender sunken oil glands, secret skin, bitter pith hidden beneath. How could we know? Juice-soaked sections, flesh encased inside yellow radiating segments in a crystal dish. How could we even ask? Returning with crusaders from Palestine, golden seeds on Spanish sailing ships. Have you watched us these 2,000 years, your true home unknown? They withhold water until you wilt and surge it through to induce a second bloom. Can you hear the earthworms in clay, silt, loam? Do you hear crinkly leaf, heart rot, purple scab, twist of wither lip, wild rabbits? What starts in the universe of a single cell, empty atoms that spin into endless black space? I am sometimes that little. I sink my serrated knife into feathery flesh pockets pitted in the smudge shine, fragrant glands, pungent burst as mother lights up another lucky strike. Do you fear the smallest things?
Lovely. Wow.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Loel.
The next piece will be a poem called Dreaming of Lilith. Natalie Burka had created a piece for this, and after the reading, she's going to come up and talk a little bit about the work.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie, for the artwork. This poem is the voice of Lilith speaking. Lilith was the first woman, the voice of Lilith. They teach you to fold linen napkins, place each one between salad and dinner plate. Seat male next to female to male. Spoon mousse into fluted crystal. Press your father's shirts, yoke first, then seam, button facing cuff, match socks warm from the dryer, as if that is all there is. They warn you of my needle talents in the night to kidnap children like you to a place of thorns, thistles, nettles, owl shadows where night birds gather, where no one has ever been so alone. You sleep to the symphony of tree frogs from the swamp behind your parents' house as cocktail voices merge into midnights. You race down dream hills into the wind to fly above broken branches as I whisper into the solar system of your cells. In the unfolded morning, your shy mouth sewn shut, your thirsty heart tries to remember, but they try to convince you I don't exist. Afraid they'll discover each night as the edge of suburban surface fades and dark matter begins to form. You pray for me to carry you away.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anique. Okay, now I'm going to bring up Natalie. Where are you, Natalie? Here you are. Natalie, you want to talk a little bit about the piece we just heard?
Sure. The piece is actually right behind me, but with the camera and the computer, it's not as great as it could be. I'm glad you showed the 3 views. I fell in love with this poem, Anique. Thank you so much. I have to say, it's a little funny because at first I didn't know if you'd be there or not to read it, and then heard you would be. This poem is the easiest poem to read. I absolutely love reading it. And there was so much imagery in it. I had heard of Lilith and kind of was drawn to find out more about it. And I love when a poem gives me a reason to look into things deeper, and found out a whole bunch of mythology about her. Love her whole character, that she's this independent, wild person that kind of kicked herself out of Eden, which I like because she wasn't going to bow down to Adam, as she was made with clay too and was equal to him and wouldn't be subservient. So she said, I'm leaving because she wouldn't be different.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that. I love the whole story. Woo-hoo, wild women, right? So
Yeah.
I've read books like Dances with Wolves, or I'm sorry, Women Who Run with Wolves and things like that. And this should be an archetype, right? Lilith should be the one who teaches us how to truly be inside. So there was so much imagery in there. I couldn't believe it, from the thorny places to the more I researched her, and she hangs out with the birds of prey kind of thing, and is the wild person. So there's a lot of hidden meanings in there too, but my best find was that little house for on top, because I wanted that strong contrast you pulled in with that first paragraph, which is how I grew up. I knew exactly what you were talking about down to the end, where we'd like to be, what we'd like to run to, what our true selves are. So that was awesome.
Thank you so much for reflecting that so beautifully in your work.
Oh, thank you. It was so easy. And you read 30 poems or something like that at once to find the one you want. I knew this right away. First line, I'm like, oh, I'm reading. I want that one. I'm doing something. So this was a lot of fun to do. Thank you. And the mixed media was so fun to work with. I didn't expect it. I wandered in the woods and kept finding things that fit literally in our property, and finding, just all kinds of things that I'd had. So all this was things I actually had, and just picked some thorny branches and stuff and put it together. So it was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie, there are 2 other poems you want there were 2 pieces of art that were created inspired by 2 of Natalie's works. So she's going to read those now. The first one is a piece that was created by Ed Burke's.
Yeah, thanks. This is a poem called I Think We See Things Differently. Boy, I did not write this recently. This is 2006, but if it doesn't fit now, I don't know when it would fit. So I think we see things differently. I think we wade where it's wet and warm, where the pulse comes from. We feel rhythms from a beating muscle under the heart, originations in compassion and conscience. I think they see things differently. I think they tread on white, bony structures, stripped of fleshy dreams. An empty cage heated by the echoes of remembered battles. I think our heroes are different, found in healing words, sacred arts, endless nurturing. I think they worship differently, offering prayers on battlefields, conference rooms, huddled in hidden places, from towers in the sky. I think we need 2 words for humans. Male and female don't begin to cut it. And I love this piece that he did. You can see the conversations and the differences and the grouping. Really nice piece, very layered, which I love too. And then the next poem is Eden and Josephina, and I hope I say her name right, Robert Godelius. I'm trying. Is that right? Josepha.
Gutelius.
Okay, thank you. She made this beautiful piece after a poem I wrote called Eden. I absolutely adore the colors and the layering and the hiding, a lot hidden in here, which I love. But it's a very bold poem. So Eden. This time, she was all thought and no action. Theoretically, her faith in an actively peaceful planet had taken enough hits to be spit out by now. Just a spreading stain on the pavement. She began to look intently for signs of spring. She could seal the deal by feasting on bursting dandelions and surreal daffodil visions. Spot an eagle and she could last for a week. If things got really bad, she could always walk, naked and serpentless in the garden. That's that one. And it's kind of funny, both poems were written previous to this years, and they both seemed really timely, and just that one, especially for right now, I'm looking at my daffodils out the window. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next we are going to bring up Lucinda Abra again. Lucinda is going to read 2 pieces by Cicco. Unfortunately, Michelle wasn't able to join us today. Lucinda, take it away.
Vibrations, rolling in foam, gathering at the crest, white merging the blues, and green spreading out, pounding as it greets the shore, rolling, salt rocking shells, sand pulling back close. Your eyes feel the waves. And next, Rainisfera, low-lying clouds set against jagged sea cliffs, offers a foreboding feeling, poised with much strength against thundering winds. The determined traveler trudges, heading towards the colossal rock formations, sloshing through black sand. Do not trust yourself, your senses, to turn away from these unforgiving waves. Soaring Atlantic sprays are seen smashing into ancient monoliths. Intense, deafening surf devours the dark beach. As the monster waves recede, only shadows remain.
Thank you, Lucinda. And we are going to bring now Andrea Geller, who Andrea created 2 of the pieces, I believe. And 2 pieces that we just saw. So Andrea is going to, well, first of all, Andrea, tell us how to pronounce that. That town.
Yes, I'm glad you asked, because I had to ask my son how to pronounce it. It's Icelandic. It's Reynisfjara, and it is a location in Iceland that I had the opportunity to visit this past summer. And what's interesting is I found that Michelle de Cicco really captured the experience beautifully. And I also chose to do a painting about water that she had written, and I didn't realize that had happened until after the fact. But water has inspired my work for many years, as I have painted oceans, pools, and solid water in the form of glaciers, which had the idea of glaciers actually led me to Iceland. And while there, we went to this place, Reynis Fjara, in the morning. And in Iceland, where the weather patterns change every 5 minutes and rain comes and goes as quickly, we saw the basalt columns in the distance with very little clarity. And this beach is known to be one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. However, the waves are tremendously large and there's an incredible undercurrent that you just have a sense of danger. And so this was a powerful experience for me and my family as I just stared out into the sea with the wind whipping at my face. I barely heard my family speak as they spoke to me. And I captured my daughter, who was always constantly in motion, moving across the black sand. And so I was happy that I was invited to do this again, because it was an opportunity to actually, commit that experience to paper. So thank you, Robert.
Absolutely, it's great to have you part of the show again. Andrea has a really nice collection of water-based, paintings based on water, not water-based paints, but they are of a swimming pool, a whole bathing series of icebergs and glaciers. There's a whole selection on the Emerge Gallery artsy site. So have a look when you have a chance. Thank you, Andrea.
And thank you.
Our next reader is going to be Theresa Landy Daniels, who is going to read three poems, two poems that were created for J.D. Weiss's photograph, The Long Wait, and then a poem that was created for Gary's, a piece of art that was created for Gary's piece, Beyond Ideas. So take it away, Theresa. Oh, hold on. I think you're on mute. Where are you? You good?
I just took myself off. Is that okay?
Got it. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry about that, folks. Okay. Great. Thanks, Theresa.
The piece is called The Long Wait, and the first poem is by Michelle de Cicco. The Long Wait. When will she return? My heart aches till I see her again. I'm so hungry and cold. Remembering when she brought me home, she held me in her arms. I was always jumping to give her licks on her wrinkled face and hands. She always gave me hugs and belly rubs. Loved sitting next to her when she watched TV. Never pulled her when we walked together, except to protect her from squirrels. Always gave her my fullest attention when she ate. Always made sure she was warm when she slept. Wondering where those people took her. I'm so cold, and she needs me. And the second poem for this piece is by Gwyneth Green, and it's called Devoted. She waited for what seemed like years. She waited patiently, uncomplaining, without contempt. She waited for the phone to ring. It rarely did. She waited for flowers to come. They seldom did. She waited for loving words. They never were said. She lost herself in another's life. With blinders tied tight, she couldn't see left or right. She waited to be recognized. She waited to be saved. He who waited patiently, daily, saved her sanity. Recognizing her weakness, he comforted her with eagerness. A paw, a lick of endearment.
Thank you, Theresa. And then the last one is by J.D. Weiss. It's a piece that was created by J.D. Weiss for Gary's poem.
The poem is called Beyond Ideas. The piece is called Beyond the Field. Beyond ideas, we come whirling like a dervish out of nothing. There's a field beyond ideas. I'll meet you there. As we walk in, as we walk in love, the lotus falls before us. There is a field beyond ideas. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Theresa. Ken, are you here? I thought I saw you. Here you are. Great. Okay. Next, we are going to hear from Ken Tannenbaum. Hi, Ken.
Hello, Robert. Hello, friends.
Photograph in the show that was chosen by Gwyneth Green. The poem is called Crush Trust, which Ken is going to read. And the piece of work is called Side Wide with View. So
Actually,
Ken,
single wide.
I'm sorry, single wide with view. Yes.
Single wide. So thank you, Gwyneth. She could not be here. I'm reading her poem. It's called Crush Trust. The twinkle in your eyes captured my heart. The words you whispered spoke of my reveries. You promised me everything. I was blinded. I didn't see. You mesmerized me into your dream. There was writing on the walls I couldn't read. You wrapped me up so very tightly into your scheme. Promises that never materialized. Promises, falsehoods disguised. You spoke of homes and gardens and me dripping in jewels. Lots of kids in our yard, 2 dogs, a cat, and a bird. And from my quiet place, a she shed out back. Plans for vacations that never occurred. And when inquired, you claimed me a shrew. Disappointed, crushed, gave up. But you, with that twinkle in your eyes, whispered, "Dear, a surprise. Pack your belongings. We move on the morrow." We drove for a week, far from a city, suburb, or town, passing through small villages and many bare plots, envisioning a castle high on some hill, overlooking a crystal clear lake, rather than ending here, his secret dream in a trailer with a view. By Gwyneth Green.
Thanks, Ken. Is this in the Hudson Valley with the Blue Mountains in the background?
Say that again?
Is this in the Hudson Valley? Are those the Blue Mountains?
This is, I have my car serviced in Kinderhook, New York. And I was having it done there and took a hike for several hours in the Kinderhook area and came across this, and it stopped me in my tracks. It's in Columbia County. Yeah. I looked at this thing and you know, recognized that while all real estate is dependent on what you can afford in some ways, what your vision is, this particular case, I thought was a castle like no other. Yeah. And whoever lives there, I've got to believe that they're happy with it. I would be. So, you know, that's what it's about. Gwyneth encapsulated some of what I had in mind. I certainly wasn't trying to cajole my wife into moving there, but I love the setting, and I hope the person's thrilled to be there. Anyway, Robert, thank you so much for today's effort. As usual, you put so much into what you do. And stay safe, friends, wherever you are.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right. And next, we're going to bring Anna Silva back. Anna is going to read a few poems by Michelle de Cicco. The first one is for Poet in Ruins, which there were three pieces of art that were created inspired by that. And then the second is Ancestors by Shelley Davis.
And can you bring him a glass of wine? Thank you.
Anna's going to be reading Michelle's piece, and then Elizabeth will come up and read her piece that was based on Ancestors. Anna, do you have your mute off?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Am I also reading Ancestors?
Yeah, Michelle's Ancestors piece. And then Elizabeth will read hers.
I had it that were by Michelle. So I'm just reading Poets in Ruin.
You're reading Poets in Ruin and then Michelle's piece called Ancestors.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Oh, no problem.
Poet in Ruins by Michelle de Cicco. A tormented soul trapped in an ancient life. As the world moves on, tangled trees and vines allow themselves the liberty to overtake her home. Oppressive icy stone wall and weathered wrought iron, panes freed of their leaded windows, doors rusted open like her pained heart. She writes effortlessly in the old style, with a sharp feather and liquid as dark as her scars.
Nice. Beautiful. The three pieces that were created, one was by Tina Piccolo, the other was by Jetta Badea, and Jack Brownling.
Should I read the one, yes, okay. So this is Ancestors by Michelle de Cicco. Centuries and decades pass through us, threads linking our souls and hearts, bound forever to our ancestors, fitting together in the most surprising of ways, like a patchwork quilt, linking our dreams, our ancestors leaving us with messages from their unknowing, giving us guidance to a greater understanding, learning from our past, ancestors linking our threads, forever bound, heart and soul.
Nice. Beautiful. All right, thank you. Thank you, Anna. And then we have, is Jetta still here? I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about your piece. No, okay. So we have Elizabeth Shafer, who Elizabeth has written a poem for Ancestors, and then she's also written a poem for Josepha Cottelius's piece called My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun, which I believe is a Emily Dickinson poem, is that right?
That's right, yes. Can you, am I unmuted now, Robert?
No, you're good, you're good.
Okay. Well, this is a poem based on the painting Ancestors by Shelley Davis. A group of wraith-like figures, some single, some in groups, drift in the sky among spherical shapes of sun and a clock, seemingly timeless, although the women in cloche hats, the men in quote, bathing costumes below, could be our ancestors, just as the ghost-like figures in the sky could be both theirs and ours. How strange and sad, we know our ancestors only from their letters and portraits, and admire them as, quote, eminences grises, gray eminences, although we can't know their deepest thoughts and feelings, as they can't know even of our existence beyond 2 generations ahead, or 3 at most. Did they try to live like the Iroquois and have, quote, always in view the coming generations? If so, those hopes were gutted by greed, by the imagined need for faster cars, dishwashers, microwaves, plastics amassing, choking the earth. The 1920s group depicted seem relieved, freed from strictures like cravats and corsets, and yet do their tentative smiles mask fears and doubts about a future, a longing to follow the spirit way of walking softly on the fragile earth.
Beautiful.
Oh, and shall I read Josepha's, the poem based on Josepha's painting?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is a poem based on a painting by Josepha Cottelius, who was inspired by My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun by Emily Dickinson. I am the woman holding the hand of the man holding the gun. I am the woman holding the gun. I am the gun, loaded, cocked, ready to blast through the smiles, curtsies, niceties, hypocrisies of which my life has been composed. Until now, as I hear the words of powerful men telling me who and how to love, when and how to bear children, while the white light of rage flares in me. And I look down the long barrel of my gun and of time and see a sister, a senator opposing a racist vote, and another senator, another powerful man trying to silence her. Nevertheless, she persisted, he sneers. Yes, persisted and prevailed, as her words and mine will live through time, burning through lies to the truth.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up with 3 different pieces. I'm going to go back and do another piece by Josefa Cutilius. She did both the artwork and wrote a piece inspired by it. So I'm really, really pleased to read this piece called The American Poet. The American Poet. I envied her for her perfect poetry, but I envied her even more when she stopped writing. She stopped just like that after getting the prize. Who does that? You're a genius, I would tell her. Being tormented is normal. I couldn't imagine being her. Such brilliance, such exhaustion. She could barely make it out of bed. Or another way she put it, I wish I could squeeze the marshmallow out of the caramel. I wish I would say, stay in bed or get out of bed. What's the difference? She didn't need to have a job due to the prize. So she had all the time in the world to be silent. She used to stay up night, heard voices. The voices spoke in perfect poetry. She just needed to write fast. She had an epiphany one night alone in her apartment and told me when she felt the hand of Blake. And that was the night she stopped writing. What is the point of reaching 5 people in Tribeca, she said to me. She needed a stadium to preach to. So she came up with a plan. She would start writing poems again, at least for a little while, longer, and then write stories, and then a novel, and then write the definitive history of quantum biology as it relates to pre-Christian theology, and she'd, etc., 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 etc. Well, she moved back to her hometown, got on disability, and defined herself as someone without a past and started a hedge fund. A success by all accounts. She dropped all contacts with me, with all of her other friends. Now what I have is this, her last letter to me. November 6, 1977. Quote, I feel that I am now, well, I've now been given, bequeathed, this heady gift, which I live for. And in that state of eternal soft bubbling anxiety that before I've known only when in the throes of love longing, that gift is that I feel I'll someday be able to write with the near mathematical accuracy of a musician, an algebra of passion. But I sometimes have flashes of Ospakian paranoia that some external herd instinct will drag me down. Pieces. This is a photograph that I had taken a number of years ago at Fish Eddie's. Does anyone remember Fish Eddie's, or was it Eddie's Fish around by Union Square? Great little kitchen store. I don't know if it's there anymore. I hope so. This is called Hands Up, and it's written by Gwyneth Green. Hands up. Pay attention. Here are the rules. 1, your answer is your left hand. 2, you do not speak your answer, is your left hand up. 3, if yes is the answer, raise your left hand. Who understands? Hey, you in the back, do you understand? Don't nod your head, hand up if you do. I'll start over. Pay attention. Here are the rules. 1, your answer is your left hand up. 2, you do not speak your answer, is your left hand up. 3, if yes is the answer, raise your left hand. 4, do not nod your head, your answer is your left hand up. Who understands? Hey, you again, you in the back, do you understand? Don't shrug your shoulders. One more time, pay attention. Here are the rules. 1, your answer is your left hand. You do not speak your answer, is your left hand up. 3, if yes is the answer, raise your left hand. 4, you do not nod your head, your answer is your left hand up. 5, you do not shrug your shoulders, your answer is your left hand up. This is not a test. Maybe it should be. If you can't respond correctly, you will have to leave, as you are an idiot. Pause while watching for a hand. You are an imbecile. Pause while waiting for a hand. Are you a moron? 4 hands up? At least I know 4 are listening. Are you a genius? Hey, you again, you in the back, with your hand up. Stand up, state your name, and say something to prove your status. A cough, a clearing of the throat, a stammer, a mumble. My name, Einstein. I'll write that by Gwyneth Green. Okay, and then this is the last piece. I thought it was pretty relevant, especially for today, so I figured we'd close with it. It's a photograph by Will Nixon, and it was a poem written by Michelle de Cicco. Hi, can we talk? We don't have much time. Sit down and listen. You haven't taken Mother Earth seriously, so I've stepped in. Everyone has to be on the same page. You all will listen to me during this new age. No more destroying trees in any rainforest. No more dumping anything in any body of water. No more littering anywhere. Every government has to behave. Only do good for our earth. Support the hemp and bamboo companies. Support the ocean cleaning companies. Everyone only uses renewable energies. No new pipelines and no more wars. Everyone must heed these laws put forth. The words of this creed comes from the north. No one shall defy the ancients, or I will lose my patience. We all must work as one, or our earth will be undone. Okay. Did anyone want to say any words? Any of our artists or poets want to say anything about the process, their work? Whatever you'd like. We have a few minutes left. No? Okay. Well, that is our program. Again, I just want to say that, I mean, this is my favorite show of the year. You know, obviously I'm very disappointed that we can't be in the gallery to see the work in person and to hear all of the poets in person, but you know, this is the next best thing. This the whole virtual reality, I guess, that we're in now. I didn't want National Poetry Month to go without a little celebration. As you may know, April was National Poetry Month, and that's one of the reasons why I do this show. So I'm really, really pleased to have all of the participants participating again. There are a number of artists and poets that have done it before, and some that are new. This is probably one of the most nerve-wracking shows that I do every year, because half of the work that I accept hasn't even been created yet. So I do need to put my full trust in the artists and the poets that I'm working with. And again, this year I was not disappointed. I hope everyone really enjoyed the show. It will be up for another month throughout May. I'm hoping to get it on the walls physically at the gallery once we open, whenever that may be. But in the meantime, you're welcome to go to the Emerge Gallery website, Emerge Gallery NY, and you can see all of the work followed by the poetry right there on one page. If you're interested in seeing individual works or purchasing any of the work, and again, all of the work is available to purchase, check out the Emerge Gallery NY shop on artsy.net. There you'll also find a number of shows past that are archived. Work from those shows are still available. There's also a number of online exclusive shows. I have a show with Linda Linton right now called about the Saltkill River. It was a whole year journey that she spent traveling the Saltkill River and creating some art. It's really spectacular. Andrea Geller has a whole series, a show of her bath series. It's a whole series of getting preparation, getting in and out of the bath. Really wonderful. I also have a nice collection of a number of the artists that were represented today. Lesley Bodzy, Marjorie Maggie, some more of Andrea Geller's work. Ed Berkey's has a whole collection of work there as well. Robert Greco, who's not part of this show, but he's a really wonderful abstract artist. Am I missing anyone? Susanna Ronner has some really wonderful monoprints. Yeah, have a look. Again, I really want to wish everyone, please be safe. Thank you for coming. I hope that we were all able to provide you with some positive energy, a little way to use up all this time that lots of people seem to have on their hands. And then maybe we inspired you a little bit to go out and create yourself. Yeah, it's a difficult time, but I think we'll all get through this. And I know one thing that will come out of this is some really wonderful poetry and art. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it again. And yeah, let's please everyone be safe, and let's look forward to this again next year. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. So wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Very excellent.
Miss you.